Chapter 1637, Lovesick. Chapter 1637, Lovesick. The whole universe had quietened down. At the center of the universe, King Gu Yu and King Gu Tong were looking at each other, and even the air froze. After a long time, King Gu Tong laughed apathetically. "Seems like I really cannot do anything about you." "I'll be waiting for you in the Gu King City," King Gu Yu said. "All right," King Gu Tong nodded his head. He was a very proud and aloof person. Even though he had lost, it was not that he was unwilling to lower his head. Instead, he felt ashamed to see King Gu Yu, his elder brother. As such, he remained at his current location and did not return to the Gu King City. This was a kind of stubbornness. However, it could also be said to be a kind of pride. It was not until that moment, when King Gu Yu appeared and swallowed his pride completely to appear as his elder brother to persuade him, that King Gu Tong finally accepted his offer. Upon seeing King Gu Tong nodding his head, King Gu Yu revealed a smile. After that, his eyes moved and he looked at Jian Wushuang. "Little kid, you are Gu Jian." "Gu Jian is my alias. My real name is Jian Wushuang," Jian Wushuang said with respect. "Jian Wushuang?" King Gu Yu raised his eyebrows. "For you to be able to clear the 6th level of the Star Moon Tower, you are not too bad." After talking, King Gu Yu's body turned vague and he disappeared from this piece of universe. It was only after King Gu Yu left that the atmosphere at their location eased up completely. King Gu Tong, the leader of the Azura tribe, Gu Luo, said with respect, "The matter this time round was planned by King Gu Yu secretly, and my Azura tribe was merely following his orders. If we have offended you in any way, we hope that you can forgive us. I shall treat this matter as though it never happened. You may leave now." King Gu Tong waved his hands. "Thank you very much." Gu Luo heaved a sigh of relief. After that, he brought the ancient gods under him along with him and left straight away. Atop the void, under the gazes of many clansmen, King Gu Tong raised his head and looked up at the sky. It was only a long time later that he sighed. "All of you are to make your preparations. We will return to Gu King City 3 days later," King Gu Tong instructed. In a split second, the clansmen of the whole tribe rejoiced. Upon seeing that, Jian Wushuang laughed indifferently. 3 days later, the whole tribe of King Gu Tong's lineage relocated into the Gu King City. After reaching the Gu King City, they moved to the place that King Gu Yu had prearranged a long time ago. Moreover, King Gu Tong also returned to the Gu King City. Even though his abilities had deteriorated, he was still one of the overlords of the Gu King City. With his position, no one could touch him. As for Jian Wushuang, he naturally returned to the ancient god palace. For the next period of time, he would continue to stay in the ancient god palace to train so that he could familiarize himself with the ancient god lineage's 4 unique skills, as well as the 2 secret skills. For the past few years, although he had grasped the 4 unique skills and 2 secret skills during the intense battles he had only grasped them in their early stages. As such, there was still much room for him to improve. Time was merciless and it continued to flow. Jian Wushuang had already lived for tens of thousands of years. To experts of the eternal chaotic world, Jian Wushuang was still considered very young. To Jian Wushuang, who had lived for quite a long period of time, thousands of years of time were considered nothing. In a flash, Jian Wushuang had already come to the eternal chaotic world for 1,700 years. In front of a stone table in a giant garden in the ancient god palace, there was a golden-haired youth sitting alone and drinking wine. "Gu Zhen." A voice could be heard and Jian Wushuang appeared within the garden. "Why are you drinking wine alone here?" Jian Wushuang wore a smile. He had participated in the same ancient god palace assessment as Zhengu. After that, for the past few years in the ancient god palace, their relationship was still considered not too bad. "Gu Jian, you have come at the right time. Come and drink with me." Gu Zhen waved his hand and another wine cup appeared on the stone table at once. Jian Wushuang did not stand on ceremony and sat down beside the stone table straight away. "From your look, could it be that you are thinking of someone you love?" Jian Wushuang asked randomly. "Huh, you have guessed correctly," Gu Zhen laughed. I am thinking of her and I really, really miss her. If that's the case, why don't you look for her? Jian Wushuang questioned. Of course I wish to look for her. However, there's no use. Even if I went, I would not be able to see her. She's a real genius and her background cannot be compared to mine. For the past few years, I trained extremely hard so that I could catch up with her one day. However, looking at it now, the distance between me and her is getting even wider. Even though we have feelings for each other, it's unsure whether we will really be together in the end. Now, I'm merely feeling lovesick and enduring the pain of this lovesickness. Gu Zhen laughed at himself. Love will find a way. As long as you work hard, you will definitely end up with the person you love, Jian Wushuang said. Love will find a way? You actually believe those words? Gu Zhen shook his head and laughed. All of a sudden, he looked at Jian Wushuang. Oh right. Jian Wushuang, do you have someone you love? Me. Jian Wushuang was stunned. However, he could not help but raise the wine cup in front of him. I have a beloved wife. After talking, he drank the wine in his wine cup down in one gulp. A wife? I'm really envious of you, Gu Zhen gasped in admiration. Envious of me? Jian Wushuang glanced at Gu Zhen and his expression turned a bit unusual. Gu Zhen was envious of him. However, in actual fact, he was envious of Gu Zhen. At the very least, Gu Zhen knew where his beloved person was and how she was doing. Hence, he could continue to work hard for her. But what about him? At that very moment, he did not even know where his wife was. He had been doing his best to find her in the eternal chaotic world. Although he had finally managed to find her once and she was already very close to him, in the end he could only look on as she left him. He knew that her aura and consciousness were in a completely sealed state and that they might disappear at any time. Moreover, there was another evil consciousness occupying her body and committing evil deeds all around the eternal chaotic world. However, he was unable to do anything about it. You have merely experienced the pain of lovesickness. As for me, I have been suffering all the while. Jian Wushuang forced a smile. However, his eyes were filled with unprecedented resolve and determination. He had never given up on his wife. All the effort that he had put in up to that moment had been for his wife. Schwanger. Wait for a while more. I will definitely find you and bring you back in one piece to our hometown happily. Definitely. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly. His fingertips had already cut his flesh and blood flowed from it. However, at that very moment, Jian Wushuang's body shook fiercely. Jian Wushuang's eyes shrank. This kind of feeling. Could it be? Jian Wushuang was delighted. Gu Zhen, you can continue drinking. I have an urgent matter to attend to and I cannot drink with you anymore. After Jian Wushuang spoke, he left quickly. Gu Zhen was still sitting beside the stone table. As he looked at Jian Wushuang, who had left abruptly, he had a doubtful expression. We had been having such a great conversation. How can he just leave like that? Although he was in doubt, Gu Zhen did not give chase. Instead, he continued drinking alone. In the ancient god palace, Jian Wushuang came to a secret room in the hall which he stayed in. After that, he placed a seal around the secret room to stop people from coming in to disturb him. Straight away after that, he sat down with his legs crossed immediately. After taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang's eyes were overflowing with delightfulness. Jian Wushuang, your chance has come and you must not miss it at any cost. Instead, you must make the best of it, the king of venomous worms' voice echoed in Jian Wushuang's mind. Jian Wushuang could tell from the king of venomous worms' voice that he was over the moon at that moment as well. As he had been living in Jian Wushuang's body, he was knowledgeable about Jian Wushuang's current state. He knew that Jian Wushuang was about to make a breakthrough. Chapter 1638, Breakthrough, Ultimate Real God. Chapter 1638, Breakthrough, Ultimate Real God. Breakthrough. It was naturally a breakthrough to become a real god. For the 4 requirements that one needed to fulfill to make a breakthrough to become a real god, Jian Wushuang had achieved the first 3 when he was in the human being's territory. The only remaining requirement was the last one, which was the opportunity to make a breakthrough. The opportunity to make a breakthrough was vague and Jian Wushuang did not know when it would be or under what circumstances would it come. He had already accepted that fact and he decided to go with the flow. However, what he absolutely did not expect was that the opportunity to make a breakthrough would actually come so quickly and suddenly. This opportunity is extremely rare. If I were to miss it, I would have no idea how much longer I would need to wait for the next one. Moreover, this opportunity might not ever come again. No matter what, I have to make a breakthrough to real God this time round. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly. After that, with a thought, elixirs appeared in front of him immediately. Those elixirs were prepared beforehand for him to make a breakthrough to real God. He was different from Duan Lingfeng. When Duan Lingfeng made a breakthrough to real God in the Burning Demon region back then, it had actually occurred very suddenly. Moreover, it had occurred when he was in danger and he did not make any preparations for it. However, Jian Wushuang had made ample preparations a long time ago. Let's begin. Jian Wushuang closed his eyes and his vigorous divine power started to rise from his body. The whole secret room became silent and only the slight noise generated from the rising divine power remained. Time passed by. In a flash, 200 years had passed. Within a lofty hall in the ancient god palace, Gu Yi. A stalwart body appeared in front of King Gu Yi abruptly. King Gu Yi, who was browsing through a bamboo strip, raised his head. When he saw the approaching person, he stood up immediately. At the same time, he revealed a modest expression, Lord Gu Tong. I have told you many times. As you are also a 7-star royal ancient god now, your realm is similar to mine and there is no need for you to call me Lord. Moreover, I have still not completely gotten rid of the sinister power within my body. Thus, by comparing abilities, I am very inferior to you, King Gu Tong said. Both you and Lord Gu Yu have always been existences that I revered. King Gu Yi still did not change his tone. It should be known that a very long time ago, when King Gu Tong and King Gu Yu were fighting for the right to rule the Gu King city, Gu Yi was merely a little kid who was only a 5-star ancient god. Moreover, at that time, he was under King Gu Tong's sect and he saw King Gu Tong as his idol. Even though many years had passed and his abilities had achieved the same level as King Gu Tong's, he was still extremely respectful to King Gu Tong. I will leave it to you to do what you want. King Gu Tong did not say much. This time around, I have come to ask about the training progress of that little kid who is under me. Lord, you can set your mind at ease. Those little kids are not too bad and they have already obtained all the rights to comprehend the 4 unique skills. In particular, Gu Heng, who is the most outstanding person, has already obtained all the rights to inherit the secret skill, Thunder Attracting Skill, King Gu Yi said. The ancient gods within the ancient god palace will all be introduced to the 4 unique skills step by step. As for the 3 secret skills, they will need to fulfill certain requirements before they are able to inherit them. They were unlike Jian Wushuang, who could inherit the 4 unique skills and 2 secret skills straight away after clearing the 6th level of the Star Moon Tower. Alright, what about Jian Wushuang? I am referring to Gu Jian, King Gu Tong asked again. Gu Jian is a true genius. For the past few years, his speed of improvement in the ancient god palace has been very shocking. He has grasped the 4 unique skills so well that they have achieved a very high level. Moreover, his 2 secret skills have also achieved quite a high level. In addition, 200 years ago, he secluded himself in training in a secret room, King Gu Yi said. Secluded himself in training? King Gu Tong's expression changed. From what I know, at the start, Jian Wushuang was still having a very good conversion with one of my clansmen. However, all of a sudden, he went to seclude himself in training. If I am not wrong, he has probably found an opportunity to make a breakthrough and he is about to make a breakthrough soon, King Gu Yi said. Oh! King Gu Tong could not help but laugh. He is going to make a breakthrough to 6-star ancient god in such a short amount of time. This little kid. Within the secret room, Jian Wushuang was still sitting down with his legs crossed and there were some droplets of sweat on his forehead. Break. Jian Wushuang shouted continuously, and the great amount of divine power which had accumulated in his body was striking a barrier repeatedly. At the same time, his hands were holding the Blood Mountain sword tightly. When he swung his sword toward the void repeatedly, a huge amount of sword essence appeared. In order to make a breakthrough to real God, he needed to surpass his own limits forcefully. This step was extremely difficult, and the time taken for the process would also be exceptionally long. Under normal circumstances, the shortest time required for a universe God to make a breakthrough to real God was tens of years, while the longest time was hundreds of years. Moreover, as an inverse cultivator, Jian Wushuang's process of making a breakthrough would be even longer, and he had already used a total of 200 years. At that moment, boom! Jian Wushuang's body shook violently. He had finally broken through his limits. An enormous amount of divine power was revolving within his body madly, and in an instant, it started to undergo a transformation. Such a transformation was strange. It was not just a transformation in terms of quality. The most important thing was that all the divine power in his body was actually gathering at one point madly. In the end, the vast sea of divine power completely changed into a golden water droplet. The golden water droplet was the size of the fist of a baby, and it contained divine power that was many times stronger than the divine power Jian Wushuang possessed when he was still a universe god. Ultimate divine power. I have achieved the 6th step of cultivation strength. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes fiercely. His eyes were glowing extremely brilliantly, and he was over the moon. An inverse cultivator was completely different from a normal cultivator. When a normal cultivator made a breakthrough from universe god to real god, his divine power and body would change in terms of quality. Hence, his abilities as a whole could rise considerably. As for an inverse cultivator, when he made a breakthrough from universe god to real god, he would enter the 6th step of cultivation strength from the 5th step of cultivation strength. As for the 6th step of cultivation strength, it was an ultimate real god. Similarly, Jian Wushuang's divine power and body would become more powerful upon entering this step. However, what was different was that Jian Wushuang would possess the ultimate divine power and ultimate body. The ultimate divine power was the golden water droplet which had formed inside Jian Wushuang's body. This divine power, Jian Wushuang was feeling the golden water droplet within his body. At the next moment, when his wrist moved, the golden water droplet released some golden divine power immediately. Rustle! The void in the whole secret room was torn into pieces instantly. It's too strong. This is too strong. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes wide. Although Jian Wushuang already had some knowledge about the 6th step of cultivation strength and the ultimate divine power, he still could not help but be shocked. If I am not wrong, my current divine power is so powerful that it can rival a chaotic real god's. Chaotic real god. That's right. The divine power and body of the current Jian Wushuang had achieved the level of a chaotic real god. It must be known that Jian Wushuang had only just become an ultimate real god, and he was a stage 1 ultimate real god, which was equivalent to a void real god of a normal cultivator. However, his divine power and body had already achieved the level of a chaotic real god. In the future, if he were to become a stage 2 ultimate real god, his divine power and body would be at the level of a normal almighty. At stage 3, his divine power and body would be comparable to top almighties, like the Star Palace Master and an 8-star ancient god. In other words, if his unique skills, secret skills, comprehension of the heaven way as well as other techniques were able to catch up to his realm, he would be able to achieve a very high level that was similar to the Star Palace Master, even though he was still in the realm of a real god. That was the 6th step of an inverse cultivator. Ultimate real god. Chapter 1639, Transformation Phase, Deep Sleep. Chapter 1639, Transformation Phase, Deep Sleep. Even though I am only a stage 1 ultimate real god, my divine power is equivalent to that of a chaotic real god. This is really impressive. Jian Wushuang gasped in admiration. At the same time, he was also feeling the power of the golden water droplet within his body thoroughly. According to the method of the sixth step of cultivation strength, when the first ultimate divine power water droplet is formed, I will only be in early stage 1 ultimate real God. In the future, the second and third ultimate divine power water droplets will form as well. With that, the ultimate divine power that I can control will increase even more and become even more majestic. Moreover, when the 10th ultimate divine power water droplet is formed, I will be able to make a breakthrough to become a stage 2 ultimate real God. After that, I will continue to form ultimate divine power water droplets until 100 of them are formed. With that, the ultimate divine power water droplets will fuse together and form an ultimate divine power pearl, and I will undergo a complete change to become a stage 3 ultimate real God. At that time, my divine power will be comparable to a top almighties, like the Star Palace Masters. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly and he was extremely delighted. At the same time, he was gasping in admiration. It was no wonder that many top experts in the eternal chaotic world would be so afraid of inverse cultivators. It was really because inverse cultivators were too frightening, especially those inverse cultivators who had cleared the inverse cultivation test for the third heaven as they had unlimited possibilities. Take real God Wu Bei as an example. In actual fact, his level of comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei was not considered very high and it could not be compared to that of a normal almighty. However, he had achieved stage 3 ultimate real God. With that, his divine power was many times stronger than a normal almighty's. Even though his comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei was slightly weaker, he would still be able to compete on equal footing with a normal almighty. Moreover, he would even be able to push back almighties with slightly weaker abilities. Furthermore, as soon as his level of comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei became higher, he would definitely be able to reach a level similar to the Star Palace Master. If a mere 6th-step real God were already so strong, what about the 7th step? It was really unimaginable. If an inverse cultivator were to enter the 7th step, what level would he be at? From what Jian Wushuang thought, an inverse cultivator who had entered the 7th step would be at the Emperor level, even if he had only just entered it. It's not only my divine power, my body is the same as well, Jian Wushuang giggled. After becoming an ultimate real God, Jian Wushuang realized an exciting thing. One of the 4 secret skills of the lineage of Star, Shen Golden Body, that he had put in quite a bit of effort to cultivate, had become utterly useless to him. It was indeed useless to him. After all, there were only 3 volumes of Shen Golden Body. By cultivating it to its peak, it could only allow his body to achieve the level of a chaotic real God. However, at that very moment, he had made a breakthrough and become an ultimate real God. Hence, his body had naturally achieved the level of a chaotic real God as well. My ancient God power has also made a breakthrough. With a thought, a significant amount of ancient God power appeared in Jian Wushuang's body immediately. Moreover, all the ancient God power gathered at the space between his eyebrows, and this caused patterns of quadrangular star to appear in the space between his eyebrows. Initially, there were 5 stars. However, at that very moment, the 6th quadrangular star had appeared. 6-star ancient God. Jian Wushuang had only just become an ultimate real God and he was at stage 1. However, if his ancient power and divine power combined and he was to unleash the ancient God unique skills and secret skills, their power would definitely achieve a level that was never seen before. In short, with the breakthrough, his abilities had definitely risen many times when they were compared to the past. Jian Wushuang had absolute confidence to face a chaotic real God. Moreover, if his level of comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei were higher, he would be even more frightening. Puff! After exhaling, Jian Wushuang, who was over the moon, regained his composure. All right, King of Venomous Worms, since I have already made a breakthrough to become a 6-star ancient God, you should have made a breakthrough along with me, right? I remembered you telling me that there was a vast threshold between a 5-star ancient God and 6-star ancient God. As soon as I make a breakthrough, you will also undergo a significant change and might even awaken many fighting abilities. Am I right? Jian Wushuang questioned. However, when his words left his mouth, he did not get an answer from the king of venomous worms, even after a long time. King of venomous worms? Read more chapter on 6 novel. Jian Wushuang frowned and he shouted for the king of venomous worms in his mind this time around. Stop shouting. Finally, the king of venomous worms' voice could be heard and his voice was obviously a lot deeper. Jian Wushuang, let me first congratulate you for finally making a breakthrough to become a real god. However, at the same time, I must tell you something. My Plenilune clan grows in accordance to the ancient gods that we live in. Since you have made a breakthrough to become a 6-star ancient god, I have also been affected greatly. Now, I am in the transformation phase. However, this transformation phase requires a period of time before it is complete. During this period of time, I will be in a deep sleep. Hence, I will be unable to talk to you and also unable to help you recover your divine power. Transformation phase? Deep sleep? Jian Wushuang was stunned. The transformation phase has already begun and I am about to enter a deep sleep. To make a long story short, for a while, I will be unable to help you and you will have to rely on yourself for everything. Please be extremely careful and don't die before I wake up from my transformation, the king of venomous worms warned. I understand, Jian Wushuang nodded his head. How long will your transformation phase take? Under normal circumstances, as a plenilune centipede, my transformation phase should take tens of thousands of years. When I lived in King Luo Zhen's body back then, my transformation phase took a total of 13,000 years. However, now is my second time entering the transformation phase, so it should not take as long as before. However, I'm not sure about the exact duration either. In short, you must be careful in everything you do. That's it. As soon as its words left his mouth, the king of venomous worms' aura disappeared and he had gone into a deep sleep. At this stage, the king of venomous worms actually went into a deep sleep. This is going to be a bit troublesome, Jian Wushuang frowned. It was indeed troublesome. He had just made a breakthrough to become a stage 1 ultimate real god and only one ultimate divine power water droplet was formed. Although his divine power was reliable, the amount of divine power he possessed was not a lot. As soon as he fought and unleashed his moves wantonly, he would exhaust his divine power quickly. Thus, he would not be able to last long. Initially, there was still the king of venomous worms in his body helping him to recover and that would allow him to be more relaxed. However, at that very moment, the king of venomous worms had gone into a deep sleep. Thus, his only ultimate divine power water droplet was really insufficient for him. Looks like if I were to fight in the future, I would have to try my best to conserve my divine power, Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. He then got up slowly. Gu Jinyu was a stage 2 6-star ancient god within the ancient god palace. Gu Jinyu also saw Jian Wushuang. He went closer. Gu Jinyu's eyes shrank. This god power, what a strong god power. Chapter 1640, Challenging the 7th Level. Chapter 1640, Challenging the 7th Level. When the abilities of a cultivator achieved a certain level, he would give off a certain amount of pressure. For example, a universe god would have the pressure at the level of a universe god. However, when someone made a breakthrough to real god, he would possess the god power. A person's god power was related to how strong his divine power was. At that moment, the invisible pressure that Jian Wushuang gave off was able to make Gu Jinyu, a stage 2 6-star ancient god, frightened. How powerful was his god power? Gu Jian, you have made a breakthrough? Gu Jinyu looked at Jian Wushuang, dumbfounded. Yes, I have just made a breakthrough, Jian Wushuang chuckled. However, even if you have made a breakthrough to become a 6-star ancient god, how can your god power be so powerful all of a sudden? Gu Jinyu frowned as he murmured. I shall make a move first. Jian Wushuang did not continue talking to Gu Jinyu and he left quickly. Jian Wushuang continued to walk forward alone. As I have only just made a breakthrough, I am not too familiar with manipulating my god power and it will be released from me if I am not careful, Jian Wushuang laughed. He was already doing his best to control his god power. However, if he wanted to control it perfectly, he would still require some time. In a split second, Jian Wushuang went to the palace that King Gu Yi lived in and requested an audience with him. Within the lofty hall. As expected, he has made a breakthrough. King Gu Yi looked at Jian Wushuang in front of him. Your god power is really very powerful. King Gu Yi, I wish to challenge the 7th level of the Star Moon Tower, Jian Wushuang said straight away. The 7th level? King Gu Yi frowned. You have only just made a breakthrough. Wouldn't it be too early for you to challenge the 7th level now? King Gu Yi knew that Jian Wushuang would definitely want to challenge the 7th level of the Star Moon Tower in the future. However, at that moment, Jian Wushuang had only just made a breakthrough and it was obvious that there was still room for his abilities to improve. Gu Jian, you should know that as your realm increases, the abilities of the opponents who you would come across in the Star Moon Tower will rise as well. King Gu Yi looked over. Back then, you were only at the level of a 5-star ancient god. If you were to challenge the 7th level of the Star Moon Tower, you would come across a stage 3 6-star ancient god. Of course, it would be a 6-star ancient god who had just entered stage 3. However, now, you have made a breakthrough to 6-star ancient god. By challenging the 7th level of the Star Moon Tower as a 6-star ancient god, the opponent who you come across will definitely possess the fighting capabilities of a top stage 3 6-star ancient god. If you really want a gauge of such a person's abilities in terms of the human being's sanctuaries, he should be someone who is extremely close to an expert of the real god ranking list. Are you sure that you currently have the confidence to face a person with such fighting capabilities? I am confident. Jian Wushuang nodded his head immediately. So confident? King Gu Yi was surprised. He did not know about the great rise in abilities of Jian Wushuang when he made a breakthrough to real god. At that moment, Jian Wushuang absolutely had the confidence to have a head-on battle with a chaotic real god. Although he would be unable to clear the 7th level of the Star Moon Tower at such a level, not to forget, Jian Wushuang still had the secret skill of Star Palace. After 2,000 years, he could unleash his secret skill of Star Palace again. Moreover, the moment he unleashed it, his attack power would rise by 100 times. As such, he had absolute confidence that he could defeat the opponent that he would face in the 7th level. I have just made a breakthrough and my abilities are in the eruption stage. Hence, what I need to do the most now is train under the aid of a great amount of resources so that I can raise my abilities. As for the resources, the ancient god sanctuary does not have them. Jian Wushuang was very clear about that. At that moment, what he wanted to raise was his level of comprehension of the Heaven Way, as well as his own sword principles. However, the lineage of ancient gods seemed to have never comprehended the power of Heaven Way. As such, they naturally did not have the necessary resources. With that, Jian Wushuang decided to return to the human beings' sanctuaries. However, before he left, he had to get his hands on the moon picking skill, which was the last and most powerful secret skill of the ancient god clan. Gu Jian, you are an inverse cultivator who has also cleared the inverse cultivation test for the 3rd heaven. Hence, I believe that you are definitely not an idiot who always believes that he is in the right. Now, let me ask you one last time. Are you sure that you want to challenge the 7th level of the Star Moon Tower now? King Gu Yi stared at Jian Wushuang with a grave expression. I am sure. Jian Wushuang nodded his head again. All right. When King Gu Yi waved his hands, an ancient, pitch-black tower floated out of his hands immediately. The tower floated out of the palace and appeared on the void above the ancient god palace. It then expanded quickly and in just a short amount of time, it had become a 100-foot tall tower. After that, its great amount of aura spread across the area immediately. Other than the ancient god palace, the vigorous aura of the Star Moon Tower also spread across each and every corner of the Gu King City immediately. Many ancient gods within the Gu King City were attracted over straight away. It's the Star Moon Tower. The Star Moon Tower has opened up again. The previous time, the super genius named Gu Jian opened up the Star Moon Tower and he cleared the first 6 levels in one go. This time around, who has opened up the Star Moon Tower? Filled with doubts and excitement, countless ancient gods headed toward the ancient god palace. Many top experts of the ancient god palace also asked King Gui about the matter. King Gui replied straight away and said that Jian Wushuang wanted to challenge the 7th level. With that, the experts in the ancient god palace were completely shocked. In the vast void, a giant sacrificial altar floated up again, and it was filled with towering, vigorous auras. Swoosh, swoosh. All of a sudden, 2 figures appeared on the sacrificial altar. Upon seeing the approaching people, everyone on the sacrificial altar stood up immediately and greeted them. The approaching people were King Gu Yu, the current ruler of the Gu King city, as well as his brother, King Gu Tong. At that moment, both of them were the people with the greatest authority in the Gu King city. When they received King Gu Yi's message and got to know that Jian Wushuang was about to challenge the 7th level of the Star Moon Tower, both of them came personally. On the ground, countless ancient gods were gathered together. All of them also knew that the person who wanted to challenge the Star Moon Tower was still Gu Jian, the person who created a miracle 2,000 years ago. I thought that someone else wanted to challenge the Star Moon Tower. However, I did not expect the person to actually be Lord Gu Jian, and he actually wants to challenge the 7th level. The 7th level. The highest level of the Star Moon Tower is the 7th level. In just a short 2,000 years, I wonder if Lord Gu Jian will really be able to clear the 7th level. Everyone was either filled with excitement and discussing the matter. Everyone was looking forward to it. When Jian Wushuang cleared the first 6 levels of the Star Moon Tower in one go previously, he had caused an uproar in the whole ancient god sanctuary. At that moment, if he were able to clear the 7th level, he would definitely become a legend. From then on, no matter how many years passed, he would still be talked about by the experts of the ancient god clan enthusiastically. However, the premise was that he must be able to clear the 7th level. Jian Wushuang. King Gu Tong, who was sitting on one of the 2 thrones at the center of the sacrificial altar, looked down with his proud eyes and asked, "Are you really confident? Please don't send yourself to death." "I am confident," Jian Wushuang nodded his head. "All right then. Please go ahead." King Gu Tong waved his hands. Jian Wushuang drew a light breath. After that, under the observance of countless eyes around him, he moved toward the Star Moon Tower. In the blink of an eye, he entered the Star Moon Tower. Chapter 1641, The Last Secret Skill. Chapter 1641, The Last Secret Skill. The 7th level was the last level of the Star Moon Tower. After Jian Wushuang appeared in a vast wasteland, he saw his opponent right away. His opponent had already revealed her ancient god body. It was a gold-armored ancient god. However, what was different was that its body was obviously slightly more emaciated, and it was not as big as other ancient gods. "Lady Gu Mei, it's you?" Jian Wushuang was surprised. Gu Mei was a 7-star ancient god. The 7th level of the Star Moon Tower was actually personally guarded by her. "Gu Jian, you are very outstanding and I admire your talents. However, even though I admire your talents, I cannot break the rules of the ancient god palace. Hence, when we fight later on, I will not show you any mercy," Gu Mei said. "Lady Gu Mei, please do your best," Jian Wushuang laughed indifferently. He could tell that Gu Mei was merely an ancient god shadow. Thus, the abilities that she could unleash would be comparable to a real gods on the real god ranking list, and she was totally within the level of people whom he could deal with. Buzz! Rippling sword essence appeared from Jian Wushuang's body. In the next moment, Jian Wushuang made his move. Within the 7th level of the Star Moon Tower, Jian Wushuang and Gu Mei's ancient god were fighting an intense battle against each other. Atop the floating sacrificial altar in the sky outside the Star Moon Tower. I wonder if Jian Wushuang will be able to clear the 7th level. This Jian Wushuang is not stupid. Since he has the guts to challenge the 7th level, he definitely has absolute confidence. But after all, the 7th level is guarded by Lady Gu Mei herself. A number of top experts were having various discussions. As for Jian Wushuang, not long after he entered the Star Moon Tower, Gu Mei, who was atop the sacrificial altar and had closed her eyes all the while, opened her eyes. "Lady Gu Mei, how was it?" Is Gu Jian dead or alive? The surrounding ancient gods looked at Gu Mei in succession. For the result, wouldn't all of you be able to find out by looking? Gu Mei chuckled. Everyone looked toward the Star Moon Tower at once. All of a sudden, a dim light appeared from the 7th level of the Star Moon Tower. He had cleared it. He actually succeeded. The top experts above the sacrificial altar, as well as the ancient gods below who came to observe, opened their eyes big at that very moment. At that very moment, Jian Wushuang's body had already come out from the Star Moon Tower and he came before the sacrificial altar. Lady Gu Mei, thank you for letting me win. Jian Wushuang gave Gu Mei a bow. I did not expect you to possess that kind of peculiar secret skill. Gu Mei looked at Jian Wushuang with a baffled expression. Jian Wushuang smiled and did not say much. Ling Shan, bring him to the ancient god palace to inherit the last secret skill, King Guyu instructed personally. Understood, Ling Shan nodded his head and brought Jian Wushuang to the place of inheritance. After Jian Wushuang had left, Gu Mei, please tell us what exactly happened in the 7th level. King Guyu looked toward Gu Mei. I am also very curious. King Gu Tong also wore an interested expression. King Guyu, King Gu Tong, and everyone else present. Firstly, I have to say that my ancient god shadow did not hold back in the 7th level of the Star Moon Tower and it displayed abilities that were in accordance with the standards of the Star Moon Tower, Gu Mei said. After Jian Wushuang became a 6-star ancient god, his abilities were indeed very powerful and he could rival a stage 3 6-star ancient god. However, when he was fighting an intense battle against my ancient god shadow, he was completely suppressed. At the start, it was extremely one-sided and I even thought that there was no doubt that he would die. However, in the blink of an eye, his abilities skyrocketed abruptly. If I'm not wrong, he has unleashed a very special secret skill which allows his power to achieve a completely new level which might even be above mine. Moreover, after unleashing his secret skill, neither did he waste any time on me nor compete with me in terms of close-quarters combat skills. Instead, he only unleashed unique skills and secret skills to compete with me in terms of power. Even though it was purely a head-on clash of attacks, I was not his opponent and I was defeated. That's it. The top experts present all looked at one another. Among them, a red-haired, tall old man said, 2,000 years ago when he challenged the 6th level of the Star Moon Tower which was guarded by me, he was not my opponent at the start as well. However, all of a sudden, his abilities skyrocketed and the power he unleashed was way greater than mine. Thus, I was defeated. It seems like he had used that secret skill as well. As soon as his words left his mouth, many experts present understood. This little kid actually possesses that kind of secret skill. No wonder he is so confident. King Gu Yi laughed apathetically. Ancient God Palace. Under the guidance of Ling Shan, Jian Wushuang came in front of the 3 black ancient attics again. Out of the 3 attics, Jian Wushuang had already gone into 2 of them and inherited the thunder attracting skill, as well the star destruction skill. At that very moment, he was only left with the final attic. You may go in now. The rules are the same, you only have 10 years' time, Ling Shan said. Understood, Jian Wushuang nodded his head. Without hesitation, he stepped into the palace. When he entered the palace, the first thing he saw was still the 1,000,000-foot-tall ancient god shadow, which was at the end of his line of vision. The moon-picking skill is the most powerful and mysterious skill of the ancient god clan's 3 secret skills. Hence, I wonder how impressive this secret skill is. Filled with a bit of excitement, Jian Wushuang sat down with his legs crossed immediately. Let's begin. Jian Wushuang closed his eyes. In no time, memories of inheritance flowed into him. Jian Wushuang also did his very best to absorb the memories of inheritance. However, all of a sudden, Jian Wushuang's expression changed fiercely. The moon-picking skill is actually a space-time type secret skill. Jian Wushuang was surprised. It should be known that what he had comprehended was the space-time doctrine. Hence, his ability to detect the power of space-time was naturally high. As he absorbed the memories of inheritance, he could feel clearly that the moon-picking skill involved power of spacetime. The moon-picking skill was an extremely advanced and frightening spacetime-type secret skill. Hence, it could be said to be a remarkable ability. However, it was unusual that such a secret skill did not require one to comprehend the power of spacetime at all. Instead, one only required a great amount of ancient god power to use it. How exquisite! As Jian Wushuang muttered to himself, his consciousness could not help but enter a state of comprehension. As he absorbed the memories of inheritance, he also used them to learn the secret skill and, from there, he comprehended the spacetime doctrine as well. After all, such an advanced spacetime secret skill would involve an extremely huge amount of power of spacetime. Moreover, these were all things that Jian Wushuang could comprehend. Time passed by. In a flash, 10 years had passed. The inheritance of the moon-picking skill had come to an end. As for Jian Wushuang, not only did he learn the complete method to use the moon-picking skill, his level of comprehension of the spacetime doctrine had also increased greatly. If I'm not wrong, my comprehension of the spacetime doctrine has already achieved the standards needed to clear the 4th level of the Doctrine Palace. Jian Wushuang giggled. Chapter 1642, Returning to Thunderbolt Island. Chapter 1642, Returning to Thunderbolt Island. Originally, Jian Wushuang had only wanted to inherit the moon-picking skill fully. However, during the process of inheriting it, his level of comprehension of the spacetime doctrine had also increased greatly, and it could be said to be an unexpected gain. I have already obtained the Ancient God Clan's 4 unique skills and 3 secret skills. Moreover, I have also made a breakthrough to real God. Thus, I have achieved all my objectives for coming to the Ancient God Sanctuary, and it's about time for me to leave. Jian Wushuang stood up as he laughed. Although he possessed the bloodline of an ancient god and a human being at the same time, he had been living in human territories ever since he was young. Hence, he naturally had a greater sense of belonging in human territories. For his trip to the Ancient God Sanctuary, it was merely for the unique skills and secret skills. Since he had achieved his objectives, he naturally had to leave. After walking out of the Palace of Inheritance, Jian Wushuang bid farewell to King Gu Tong, King Gu Yu, and the rest of the people he was familiar with. After finding out that Jian Wushuang was about to leave, King Gu Tong, King Gu Yu, and the rest of the people who he was familiar with were not surprised. In no time, Jian Wushuang settled everything that he needed to settle in the lineage of ancient gods. After that, he left the Ancient God Sanctuary and headed to the human territories. Hall Master Yuan, I have already left the Ancient God Sanctuary. Also, I have made a breakthrough to real God, Jian Wushuang informed Hall Master Yuan of what had happened. You made a breakthrough already? So quickly? Hall Master Yuan was surprised at first. After that, he became delighted. That's great. Jian Wushuang, now, do you plan to return to the lineage of Star or go to the Thunderbolt Island? I should be going to the Thunderbolt Island, Jian Wushuang said. As he had just made a breakthrough, his abilities were in the eruption stage. Thus, he would benefit greatly if he were to go to the Thunderbolt Island to train at this stage. Since that's the case, please be careful during your journey, Hall Master Yuan warned. Understood, Jian Wushuang nodded his head. A huge amount of time was required to return to the Thunderbolt Island from the Ancient God Island. However, the good thing was that after coming out of the Ancient God Sanctuary, no one had their eyes on him. As such, his journey was quite a smooth one. Thunderbolt Island, the Sanctuary Alliance's base. After returning to the Thunderbolt Island, Jian Wushuang went to the Fairy Palace immediately. Old Snake. Jian Wushuang was standing in front of a black-skinned old man who was wearing a simple hemp garment. The black-skinned old man was called Old Snake, the person in charge of the Fairy Palace. Jian Wushuang? I have not seen you for some time. Oh, you have made a breakthrough to real God? Old Snake was looking at Jian Wushuang, and he could tell with a glance that Jian Wushuang had made a breakthrough to real God. I am lucky to have made a breakthrough, Jian Wushuang laughed. An inverse cultivator at the level of a real God. Although you have just made a breakthrough, from the looks of it, the Sanctuary Alliance will have an additional top expert who is able to compete against the Almighty soon. Old Snake chuckled. This time around, you wish to enter the fairy palace, right? Reincarnation fairy palace and space-time fairy palace. How many years do you wish to comprehend inside either of them for? There is still 40 years of training time remaining in each of the 2 tokens of the fairy palace's legacy that I have, so I shall use up all of them, Jian Wushuang said. In the past, he would go to the fairy palace to comprehend every few years, and he would comprehend for 10 years every time. However, at that moment, he had just made a breakthrough in his realm. Hence, the longer he could stay in the fairy palace to comprehend, the better it would be. The old snake waved his hands toward Jian Wushuang's 2 tokens of the fairy palace's legacy. You may go in. Jian Wushuang entered the reincarnation fairy palace first. In a vast, starlit sky, there was a total of 27 picture scrolls which were filled with secrets. Among the 27 picture scrolls, Jian Wushuang had finished comprehending the 10th picture scroll previously. However, when he was merely a universe god back then, his abilities had achieved the maximum possible level and he was unable to raise them any further. Thus, his level of comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei had naturally stagnated. As such, he could only stop comprehending. However, at that very moment, it was different. In the realm of real gods, there were no limits to the abilities one could have. For example, if a void real god were extremely talented and also had great opportunities, his comprehension of the Heaven Wei could absolutely achieve the standards to clear the 5th level, or even the 6th level, of the Doctrine Palace. Of course, there would not be any normal void real god who could achieve that stage. After all, if his comprehension of the Heaven Wei had already achieved such a stage, he would have been able to make a breakthrough to eternal real God a long time ago. Let's begin. Jian Wushuang started to comprehend immediately. As Jian Wushuang comprehended, he realized that after making a breakthrough to real God, his ability to sense the power of Heaven Wei had risen greatly. When he was only a universe god back then, with the aid of the 27 picture scrolls in the reincarnation fairy palace as well as the wonderful guidance from the fairy palace, his comprehension speed was already extremely shocking. At that moment, he had become a real god. Thus, his comprehension speed had become many times faster as compared to before. It's too fast. This comprehension speed is too fast. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly and he was extremely delighted. With such a shocking comprehension speed, in just 2 years' time, Jian Wushuang comprehended the 11th picture scroll completely. After that, he used another 7 years' time to fully comprehend the 12th picture scroll. After comprehending the 12th picture scroll fully, it meant that Jian Wushuang's comprehension of the reincarnation doctrine had achieved the standards needed to clear the 4th level of the Doctrine Palace. Moreover, he was still left with 31 years of time. Continue. Jian Wushuang suppressed his happiness and continued to comprehend. However, the power of Heaven Wei would become more complicated the more one comprehended it. As such, it would naturally become more difficult to comprehend. It was still all right for the first 12 picture scrolls. However, when Jian Wushuang reached the 13th picture scroll, his comprehension speed was obviously slower. In the blink of an eye, 40 years had passed and Jian Wushuang could only leave the reincarnation fairy palace. During the 40 years of the 27 picture scrolls in the reincarnation fairy palace, I fully comprehended the 13th picture scroll and I'm even close to 90% of the 14th picture scroll. This is already considered not too bad. Jian Wushuang was satisfied. After all, if he were to rely on his own abilities to train, it would be unknown as to how many years it would take for him to achieve such a level in his comprehension of the reincarnation doctrine. However, the reincarnation doctrine served as his shortcut and he only spent a short 40 years. Next, it's time for the space-time fairy palace. While wearing a smile, Jian Wushuang entered the space-time fairy palace immediately. Similarly, he could comprehend for 40 years in the space-time fairy palace. Moreover, his comprehension of the space-time doctrine was at a higher level than the reincarnation doctrine and it could already clear the 4th level of the Doctrine Palace a long time ago. For the 40 years, Jian Wushuang comprehended thoroughly. After 40 years, of the 27 picture scrolls in the space-time fairy palace, he had fully comprehended the first 14 picture scrolls, and he was also about to be done with the 15th picture scroll. Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more and I will be able to comprehend the 15th picture scroll fully. When Jian Wushuang walked out of the space-time fairy palace, he was a bit dissatisfied. He felt that if he were to stay in the space-time doctrine for another short period of time, maybe about 4 to 5 years, he would be able to comprehend the 15th picture scroll fully. It should be known that as long as he comprehended the 15th picture scroll fully, he would be able to clear the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace. By clearing the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace, he would be able to obtain the right to stay in Thunderbolt Island permanently. Moreover, this was something that many chaotic real gods were unable to achieve. In addition, there would also be a very huge meaning in Jian Wushuang clearing the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace using his spacetime doctrine. Chapter 1643, Just a Little Bit More. Chapter 1643, Just a Little Bit More. At its highest level, I can unleash thousands upon thousands of shadows when I use my martial art motion, Flowing Light Phantom. Moreover, there is a very high requirement in terms of the level of comprehension of the spacetime doctrine in order to achieve such a level. To achieve such a level, the minimum requirement is to be able to clear the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace. In other words, as long as I can comprehend the 15th picture scroll in the Spacetime Fairy Palace completely, I can unleash the power of Flowing Light Phantom when it is at its highest possible realm. By then, my ability to stay alive will rise exponentially. Jian Wushuang was clenching both his fists tightly. The creator of the secret skill Flowing Light Phantom is an extremely powerful chaotic real god. In spite of that, the chaotic real god's level of comprehension of the spacetime doctrine was only at the level that was enough to clear the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace. However, during his generation, when he used his martial art motion, he was recognized as the number 1 among the real gods in terms of martial art motion. From this, it could be seen how impressive his martial art motion was. Thus, if Jian Wushuang's level of comprehension were to achieve that level where he was able to unleash the Flowing Light Phantom's power at its final stage, his martial art motion still might not be recognized as the number 1 among real gods. However, he would rank at least 10th among the real gods. With that, not only would his abilities rise greatly, most importantly, his ability to stay alive would be greater as well. It was a pity that after comprehending in the Spacetime Fairy Palace for 40 years, he was still a very small step away from comprehending the 15th picture scroll fully. No matter what, I have to be able to unleash the power of the final stage of the Flowing Light Phantom secret skill. Hence, I have to think of a way to enter the Spacetime Fairy Palace again to train for a period of time. As for the way, Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes slightly. There was still a long time before the Sanctuary Alliance would give out the token of the Fairy Palace's legacy again. Moreover, Jian Wushuang definitely could not afford to wait. It was also impossible for the lineage of Star to help him get another token of the Fairy Palace's legacy. Since that was the case, he could only rely on himself. With his abilities, there was only one way for him to obtain comprehension time in the Fairy Palace. Betting on a match. Thunderbolt Island, Fighting Space. When Jian Wushuang came to the fighting space, the 2 experts who were fighting an intense battle had just completed their battle. Real God Emotion, thank you for letting me win. The voice of an old man with fluttering white hair resounded across the area. You are merely lucky. After giving a cold hum, Emotion left straight away. As for Jian Wushuang, he stepped into the fighting space immediately. The old man with fluttering white hair saw the arrival of Jian Wushuang. After that, his expression changed and he laughed. Jian Wushuang, could it be that you wish to duel with me as well? I have come to bet on a match. Jian Wushuang came in front of the old man with fluttering white hair. What do you wish to bet? The old man with fluttering white hair asked. I still have more than 1,000 years of training time in the Thunderbolt Island. Hence, I will use my 1,000 years of training time, as well as 100 doctrine gems, as my stakes. As for what I want, it is 10 years of training time in the Fairy Palace, Jian Wushuang said. As soon as his words left his mouth, the old man with fluttering white hair was shocked. 1,000 years of training time in the Thunderbolt Island was considered nothing. Under normal circumstances, 100 doctrine gems could represent all the treasures and belongings of a top eternal real god. As Jian Wushuang had killed tens of real gods in one go in the Burning Demon region back then, and he had obtained many treasures. By adding real god Shiju's treasures and belongings on top of that, he could fork out 100 doctrine gems. However, that was the best that he could do. Your stakes are very attractive. However, it's a pity that I do not even have a token of the Fairy Palace's legacy and hence training time in the Fairy Palace. Therefore, I am unable to give you what you want. The old man with fluttering white hair waved his hands and was about to leave. Access web novel. Live if you like watching manga, comics. Jian Wushuang did not stop him. Instead, his eyes looked around the surrounding and he said heartily, "Everyone present here, if any one of you is able to fork out 10 years of training time in the Fairy Palace, please step forward." After talking, Jian Wushuang stayed within the fighting space and closed his eyes. It was obvious that he planned to wait for someone to bet a match with him. The stakes that he had proposed were indeed attractive and he believed that a number of people would be interested. As expected, after a number of real gods in the fighting space heard Jian Wushuang's words, they became restless. 100 doctrine gems. This Jian Wushuang is really rich and arrogant. Of course, he is the apple of the lineage of Star's Eye. What a pity! What he wants is training time in the Fairy Palace. Although there are many experts in the Thunderbolt Island, there are not many people with a token of the Fairy Palace's legacy. At the very least, I do not have it. A number of real gods felt that it was a pity. Although they were interested in Jian Wushuang's stakes and were confident that they possessed the abilities to defeat Jian Wushuang, they did not possess the item that Jian Wushuang wanted. However, although they did not have it, they informed some experts who possessed training time in the Fairy Palace at once. In the Thunderbolt Island, there were special secret patterns carved on the roof of an exquisite attic. At that very moment, there was a purple-armored handsome man sitting down with his legs crossed over there. The handsome man was real god Tianming of the Four-Symbol Mansion. Real god Tianming's expression changed and he opened his eyes. Jian Wushuang is betting on a match. The stakes are 1,000 years of training time in the Thunderbolt Island as well as 100 doctrine gems, and he only wants 10 years of training time in the Fairy Palace. He offered 100 doctrine gems right away. This Jian Wushuang is really liberal with his wealth. Real god Tianming was muttering to himself. At the next moment, he got up and headed to the fighting space. As soon as he arrived at the wrestling ring that the fighting space was at, real god Tianming saw many other real gods who had arrived as well. There were many real gods and they amounted to close to 100. Moreover, among those real gods, there were quite a number of them who real god Tianming recognized or were familiar with. Moreover, there were even a few genius experts who possessed the token of the Fairy Palace's legacy among them. This battle of Jian Wushuang has actually attracted so many people? Real god Tianming raised his eyebrows. However, he calmed down in no time. He knew that Jian Wushuang was not betting on a match with a specific person. Instead, he stood at the fighting space and declared that he would fight with anyone who could fork out 10 years of training time in the Fairy Palace. This was challenging the huge number of real gods in the Thunderbolt Island. In addition, Jian Wushuang was an inverse cultivator and he was already extremely special to begin with. Chapter 1644, Real God Xian Feng. Chapter 1644, Real God Xian Feng. He has indeed defeated me before, real god Tianming admitted right away. There you have it. Since you are also not his opponent, if I were to bet a match with him, wouldn't I be making myself embarrassed? Moreover, I do not have much training time left in the Fairy Palace. Real god Shenyu forced a smile. After that, he asked immediately, "For you to come again now, could it be that you wish to have a battle with Jian Wushuang again?" Real god Tianming shook his head. Jian Wushuang's level of comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei is extremely high. Although I have improved during the past 2,000 years, he must have improved a lot as well. Hence, I am not confident that I can defeat him. Let us observe the situation first. Yes, you're right. Real God Shen Yu nodded his head. At that moment, swoosh! A figure entered the fighting space, and this attracted the attention of many experts in the wrestling ring. It's real God Xian Feng. Shen Yu was shocked. It's him. Real God Tian Ming's eyes squinted. Most of the people in the Thunderbolt Island were eternal real gods. Although there were also a few void real gods, there were very few of them. Among the void real gods on the Thunderbolt Island, real God Tian Ming was considered one of the top gods. However, there were also void real gods who were stronger than him, and one of them was naturally the Monster King. The Monster King of the Soaring Heaven King Palace had been recognized as the #1 among the void real gods. Thus, real God Tian Ming's abilities were naturally incomparable to the Monster King's. Apart from the Monster King, the only other void real god in Thunderbolt Island who had made him extremely fearful was real God Xian Feng. Within the fighting space, real God Xian Feng had already appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. 1,000 years of training time in the Thunderbolt Island, as well as 100 doctrine gems? Real God Xian Feng was looking at Jian Wushuang. That's right, Jian Wushuang nodded his head. Alright, I have 10 years of training time in the Fairy Palace. Let's get started. Real God Xian Feng had a cold expression, and his hands were already holding his purple saber. As you wish. Jian Wushuang laughed, and the Blood Mountain sword had already appeared in his hands. After that, swoosh! Jian Wushuang's body moved straight away. He did not use his martial art motion. Instead, he only relied on his own speed as well as his comprehension of the space-time doctrine. However, the speed that he unleashed in an instant caused many real gods outside the fighting space to open their eyes wide. This speed! Real God Xian Feng was shocked as well. The 4th level? His comprehension of the space-time doctrine has definitely achieved the standard needed to clear the 4th level. Real God Xian Feng's expression turned ugly at once. He knew that Jian Wushuang had defeated real God Tian Ming before 2,000 years ago. Moreover, with Jian Wushuang's talents, his abilities would definitely be stronger after 2,000 years. However, he did not expect Jian Wushuang's comprehension of the space-time doctrine to be able to achieve the standard needed to clear the 4th level of the Doctrine Palace in just a short 2,000 years. After all, it would be more difficult to comprehend the power of Heaven Wei the more one comprehended it. The 4th level of the Doctrine Palace was equivalent to the standard of a chaotic real god, and it would not be easy to achieve it. For example, a top genius like him had been stuck at the 3rd level for a very long period of time, and he had been unable to achieve the 4th level. However, Jian Wushuang had actually managed to achieve the 4th level so easily. Damn it! Real God Xian Feng gave a cry. When he saw Jian Wushuang's body appearing in front of him, he became vigilant immediately and also held his saber tighter. Swish! Jian Wushuang attacked with his sword straight away. Under the influence of the power of space-time, the stroke was so fast that even the naked eyes of a void real god were unable to capture it. Real God Xian Feng also swung his saber to block the attack immediately. Clang, 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 clang. The both of them fought instantly. If not, you will have to give away your position as the #1 of the void real gods, Real God Xian Feng said. Chapter 1645, Fighting the Monster King Again. Chapter 1645, Fighting the Monster King Again. My first position is not something that be taken away from me easily. Even an inverse cultivator like him will not be able to do it. The Monster King laughed gloomily, and he entered the fighting space instantly. The Monster King has gone in. This is going to be interesting. No wonder how strong Jian Wushuang is. He is still slightly inferior compared to the Monster King. Many real gods within the wrestling ring were chatting with one another. Within the fighting space, the Monster King had already come in front of Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, do you have the guts to fight me next? The Monster King laughed evilly. Why not? Jian Wushuang was not afraid in the slightest. Great. When you bet a match with me back then, Our stakes were 20 years of training time. Should it be the same this time round? The Monster King said. I only have 10 years of training time in the Fairy Palace. For the remaining 10 years, I will offer you 1,000 years of training time in the Thunderbolt Island, as well as 100 Doctrine Gems as replacement, Jian Wushuang said. No problem, the Monster King nodded his head. I heard that you defeated real god Xian Feng with your space-time doctrine. From this, it means that your level of comprehension of the space-time doctrine has already reached the level necessary to clear the 4th level of the Doctrine Palace? That's right, Jian Wushuang admitted. Read more chapter on VIP novel. You also know that what I am most proficient in is the space-time doctrine. Since that is the case, let's see whose level of comprehension is higher. The Monster King laughed strangely and his body flashed abruptly. With the flash, he had already disappeared. Swoosh! The void behind Jian Wushuang was broken open and the Monster King stepped out of it. The gloomy, cold dagger in his hands then headed toward Jian Wushuang's head. When Jian Wushuang had fought with the Monster King 2,000 years ago, the Monster King had used the same attack and Jian Wushuang was unable to block it. However, this time round. Swish! The pitch-black dagger which was emitting an infinite amount of gloom and a cold aura pierced through Jian Wushuang's head directly. However, no blood was seen. A fragmentary shadow? The Monster King raised his eyebrows. I will not fall for the same move twice. Moreover, I will not be defeated by the same opponent twice. Jian Wushuang's ice-cold voice could be heard from a void by the side. At the same time, an ice-cold sword shadow had already cut open the void and was heading toward the Monster King. The Monster King moved sideways and the sword shadow brushed past his body. However, at that very moment, Jian Wushuang dashed forward fiercely. Boom! His speed, that had caused even real god Xian Feng to tremble with fear, was unleashed. Ha! I really want to see whose speed is faster. The Monster King grinned hideously and his body moved as well. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The two shadows were shuttling back and forth within the fighting space. While they were moving, they also left behind strange fragmentary shadows which caused everyone to be dazzled. Outside the fighting space. So fast. Both of their speeds are fast. Where are the both of them? Many real gods were watching with great concentration. However, all of a sudden, a thunder-like sound could be heard and those real gods looked toward the source of the sound immediately. However, they only saw that a part of the void that had burst apart completely. Moreover, even though that part of the void had just burst apart, another part of the void which was 1,000 miles away had twisted open as well. At the same time, a sword shadow appeared and split the universe into two halves. Another explosive sound could be heard. However, this time around, the sound came from the edge of the fighting space. Speed. This was a duel in terms of speed. Ha! Jian Wushuang, after not seeing you for 2,000 years, your level of comprehension of the space-time doctrine has indeed risen by quite a lot. However, it's a pity that this kind of speed is still not enough. The Monster King's voice could be heard. However, the people outside the fighting space had absolutely no idea where the Monster King was. Is that so? Jian Wushuang grinned. He then stopped hiding his power of space-time and unleashed it completely. It should be known that the power of space-time that Jian Wushuang had unleashed from the start until then was only at the standard that had just cleared the 4th level of the Doctrine Palace. However, at that very moment, he had gone all out with his power of space-time, which was already extremely near to clearing the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace. Boom! Jian Wushuang moved around crazily like a shooting star and his speed was at least 3 times faster than before. What? The Monster King's expression changed slightly. His eyes then turned grave straight away as he realized that the speed that Jian Wushuang had just displayed was actually slightly faster than him. Puff! Jian Wushuang's body appeared and he swung the Blood Mountain sword on his hand straight away. Swish! 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 A total of 10 strokes were swung out in an instant. Every stroke was so fast that it was unbelievable and they were just like shooting stars. The Monster King's eyes turned cold. At the next moment, A great amount of purple thunderbolts rose from his body and spread across the surrounding with a shocking speed. The purple thunderbolts contained extremely violent power. In just an instant, they had covered the whole fighting space and changed it into a vast purple thunder pond. As for the dagger on the Monster King's hands, it was accumulating a great amount of thunderbolt power. He then attacked with the dagger. Clang, 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 clang. Many loud sounds could be heard. The Monster King had already unleashed his full power. However, after tens of clashes, his body could no longer take it, and he was sent flying by the impact. How is this possible? The Monster King's face was filled with fear. I actually lost in a clash of power. The Monster King was totally unable to believe what had happened. He had comprehended two heaven ways at the same time, namely the space-time doctrine and the sacred thunder doctrine. Moreover, the sacred thunder doctrine was the same as the extermination doctrine of the Supreme Four doctrine, which focused mainly on attack power. His comprehension of the sacred thunder doctrine had already achieved the standards to clear the fourth level of the Doctrine Palace as well. Under such circumstances, when his attack, which contained the full power of the sacred thunder doctrine, clashed with Jian Wushuang's sword principles, the end result was actually him being sent flying. This is the Thunderbolt Island, and our divine power is the same. Even if he is an inverse cultivator, he should only be able to unleash the divine power at the level of a normal void real god as well. However, in a head-on clash in terms of power, he actually pushed me back? Could it be? His comprehension of the reincarnation doctrine has also achieved the standard necessary to clear the fourth level of the Doctrine Palace, and it might even be at a higher level? As the Monster King thought about that, his whole face was filled with astonishment. He knew that Jian Wushuang had comprehended the space-time doctrine and reincarnation doctrine at the same time. In terms of power, the reincarnation doctrine was slightly inferior to the extermination doctrine and the sacred thunder doctrine, whose main focuses were on attack power. However, Jian Wushuang had still sent him flying, and this could only mean that Jian Wushuang's level of comprehension of the reincarnation doctrine was higher than his level of comprehension of the sacred thunder doctrine. Since his speed is slightly faster than mine, his level of comprehension should be at a higher level than mine. But now, even his level of comprehension of the reincarnation doctrine is this high? The Monster King had already started to feel anxious. As for Jian Wushuang, he had already unleashed his speed completely, and he was using his sword principles repeatedly. With such speed, the Monster King could only rely on some of his own techniques to sustain himself with difficulty. He even relied on his comprehension of the space-time doctrine to shuttle back and forth within the fighting space. With this, he avoided Jian Wushuang completely, and it was obvious that he wanted to play hide-and-seek with Jian Wushuang. Chapter 1646, The Fifth Level. Chapter 1646, The Fifth Level. This Monster King. Jian Wushuang held his sword with one hand, unleashed his speed, and chased the Monster King continuously as he wanted to kill him. However, although the Monster King's speed was inferior to Jian Wushuang, he could still use the power of space-time to move around in the void to dodge the attack. Hence, Jian Wushuang was unable to do anything to him for a period of time. In no time, both their bodies stopped moving. Jian Wushuang, I admit that your current abilities are not weaker than mine. Thus, it's pointless for us to continue fighting as we will not reach an outcome. As such, let us call it a day here, the Monster King said. Call it a day? You wish. Jian Wushuang laughed coldly. Do you think that by relying on some of the different ways of using the power of space-time to avoid fighting with me head-on, I would be unable to do anything to you? Don't forget that I have yet to use my martial art motion at all. Martial art motion? The Monster King was shocked. He remembered at once that back then, when Jian Wushuang had fought with him, he had unleashed a martial art motion. Moreover, that martial art motion was extremely strange, and it could create hundreds of shadows at the same time. At that very moment, when Jian Wushuang fought with him, he had indeed not used it yet. Monster King, just admit your defeat earnestly. Jian Wushuang's voice reverberated through the area. When his body moved fiercely, close to 100 shadows appeared immediately. Similarly, there were close to 100 shadows. However, when Jian Wushuang unleashed that move at that very moment, it was completely different from before. Previously, his comprehension of the spacetime doctrine had only had the right to clear the third level of the Doctrine Palace. However, at that moment he was extremely close to the fifth level. Furthermore, that martial art motion secret skill of his was closely linked to his comprehension of the spacetime doctrine. Many shadows could be seen moving around in the void and their speeds were extremely fast. Just like before, the Monster King wanted to rely on his power of spacetime to deal with Jian Wushuang. However, this time around, puff! A sword light appeared beside the Monster King straight away and there was no way for him to dodge the attack. Therefore, he could only choose to fight with Jian Wushuang head-on. However, as soon as he clashed with Jian Wushuang head-on, he would definitely be completely suppressed. Damn it! The Monster King gritted his teeth and he had an extremely ugly expression. However, his situation became worse by the second and finally, Jian Wushuang's sword struck his head. Buzz, the fighting space quietened down. Monster King, thank you very much for your 20 years of training time, Jian Wushuang laughed indifferently. The Monster King had a gloomy expression. At the same time, his eyes were glowing with a cold light and he was filled with dissatisfaction. However, no matter how dissatisfied he was, with so many people looking at the fighting space, he could not go back on his words. Hence, he could only give 20 years of training time to Jian Wushuang earnestly. After that, he gave a cold hum and left. 30 years of training time. As Jian Wushuang looked at the extra numbers on his own token of the Fairy Palace's legacy, he revealed a smile. For the spacetime doctrine, he was already extremely close to clearing the fifth level of the Doctrine Palace, and he was confident that he could achieve the standard needed to clear it in 10 years' time. However, at that moment, he had a total of 30 years. This is more than enough and there is no need for me to continue betting on matches. Jian Wushuang moved his body and headed outside the fighting space immediately. As soon as he walked out of the fighting space, he realized that many eyes were looking at him at once. Those eyes were filled with admiration. This Jian Wushuang has actually defeated the Monster King? He is the person recognized as the number one among the Void Real Gods. Moreover, he has only just made a breakthrough to Real God and it is obvious that there is still huge room for his abilities to improve. It is really not possible to look at an inverse cultivator normally. Even though there were still voices discussing the matter, Jian Wushuang had already left. After leaving the fighting space, Jian Wushuang came before the Fairy Palace again. After that, he entered the Spacetime Fairy Palace straight away and began his comprehension. As per what Jian Wushuang expected, he managed to fully comprehend the 15th picture scroll within the Spacetime Fairy Palace in less than 10 years. With that, Jian Wushuang's level of comprehension of the spacetime doctrine was high enough to clear the fifth level of the Doctrine Palace. By clearing the fifth level of the Doctrine Palace, one would possess the right to live in the Thunderbolt Island permanently. However, to achieve that, I would have to first challenge the Doctrine Palace for real. Jian Wushuang laughed. There's no rush. Let me first grasp the power of the final stage of the Flowing Light secret skill. Moreover, I also have one trump card that I have not touched for many years and it's time for me to take a look at it. Within the Thunderbolt Island, there were many standalone spaces which were prepared to allow some experts to practice their secret skills. At that moment, within one of the standalone spaces which was in complete darkness, swoosh, 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 swoosh. An uncountable number of shadows seemed to have flooded the whole standalone space. Moreover, those shadows were moving at high speed and it was impossible for anyone to use their naked eyes to differentiate the real body which was hiding within the shadows. Puff! All of a sudden, the great number of shadows dissipated and only Jian Wushuang remained in the whole standalone space. After my comprehension of the spacetime doctrine has achieved the standard needed to clear the fifth level of the Doctrine Palace, I can indeed unleash the power of the final stage of the Flowing Light Phantom. However, I have only just entered the fifth level and it is still a bit difficult for me to unleash it. Compared to the real God who created this martial art motion, I am probably still very far away. However, when my comprehension of the spacetime doctrine reaches the peak of the 5th level, where it is extremely close to the 6th level, I should be comparable to that real God, Jian Wushuang muttered. After having a good grasp of the martial art motion, Jian Wushuang flipped his hands and took out an item. What Jian Wushuang took out was a normal picture scroll that did not seem unusual when seen with naked eyes. The picture scroll was also slightly yellowish in color. For such a kind of picture scroll, even if it were thrown onto the streets, no one would bend down and pick it up. However, Jian Wushuang was certain that such a normal picture scroll was worth so much that countless experts would fight for it madly. It was because of that fact that it was a chaos divine treasure. Mountain River Map. Jian Wushuang's eyes were glowing brilliantly and he was looking at the ancient picture scroll which was floating in front of him. The picture scroll was given to him by a master. Moreover, it had also been with him for many years. However, during those years, Jian Wushuang had only used the picture scroll once. That time, he had to rely on swallowing the blood that King Luozhen left behind forcefully to unleash the techniques of the picture scroll with difficulty. It was just that one time. As for his master Xian using the mountain river map to refine the grand formation of the enduring samsara later on, that was his master's technique and it was unrelated to him. There was no choice. The picture scroll's level was too high. Hence, Jian Wushuang absolutely did not have the right to use its power with his abilities. He had never possessed the ability. In other words, although he had an unbelievable treasure, he could only leave it lying in his Qian Kuan ring as he was unable to use it. That had always been the case. However, at that moment, it was different. The mountain river map is a valuable treasure that is at the level of a chaos divine treasure. Under normal circumstances, only Almighties will be able to unleash the full power of a chaos divine treasure. However, for the current me, I do not need to unleash its full power. It will be enough as long as I am able to unleash a portion of its power. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly. Chapter 1647, Sanctuary Mountain. Chapter 1647, Sanctuary Mountain. As a chaos divine treasure, the mountain river map had a high requirement of divine power. A normal real god would be unable to use such a treasure. As an inverse cultivator, Jian Wushuang possessed the ultimate divine power, which was not weaker than a chaotic real god's divine power. Hence, he could barely use the treasure. The most frightening thing of the mountain river map were the 9 continents that it contained. The 9 continents would change into an earth-shaking 9-province seal. The 9-province seal contained a total of 9 moves. A long time ago, Jian Wushuang had grasped the first move. However, he lacked the divine power necessary to use it. At that very moment, as he possessed the necessary amount of divine power, he could naturally use it. Let's try it. Jian Wushuang attempted to use the first move at once. With a wave of his hand, the mountain river map blended into the surrounding void. Buzz, an unusual ray of light appeared, and the void which was originally in complete darkness started to change at once. Atop the void, a giant and exceptionally beautiful picture scroll world appeared slowly and it spread all over the heaven like flowing water. The world contained mountains and rivers. The scenery was beautiful. The most attractive thing was naturally the 9 continents which were spread all over 9 different corners. The mountains and rivers are as palms, and the 9 provinces as the seal. Jian Wushuang's eyes were glowing with a shrill light and he shouted out those words with a pause in between each word. Every word contained a special magical power. At the same time, he released the divine power from his body crazily and it entered the picture scroll world. In no time, one of the 9 continents became extremely lifelike and came out from the picture scroll world slowly. Rumble. The continent descended completely. It then fell on its frightening weight. With that, the standalone void was torn open completely like paper. In the blink of an eye, the power dissipated and the standalone void quietened down. Only the exceptionally beautiful picture scroll world, which was flowing slowly in the heavens, remained. Jian Wushuang was sitting on the void and he drew a light breath. As expected of a chaos divine treasure. Although I can barely use it with my divine power, I can only unleash 40% of the power of the 9-province seal's first seal. As for my divine power, I have used more than 50% of it, Jian Wushuang gasped. He had only become an ultimate real god recently. Hence, his body only contained one ultimate divine power water droplet and he did not possess enough divine power. By using the eternal divine treasure forcefully, he would deplete a great amount of divine power. However, even though the rate of depletion was shocking, its power did not disappoint him. If I am not wrong, if I were to activate the mountain river map and use the first seal of the 9-province seal with my current divine power, its power would be enough to kill a normal chaotic real god easily. Moreover, even top experts from the chaotic real gods would be unable to block it. If I were to combine it with the secret skill of Star Palace, even if it were experts in the real god ranking list, probably not many of them would be able to block it. Moreover, even if they were able to block it, they would definitely end up in a bad state. In other words, I currently have two strongest trump cards. The first one is the secret skill of Star Palace while the second one is this mountain river map. Moreover, if I were to come across a strong enemy who I cannot block at all, I could use these two trump cards at the same time. If I were to go up another stage and become a stage 2 ultimate real god, where my divine power is equivalent to that of a normal almighty, I should be able to unleash the full power of the 9-province seal's first move. Moreover, I might even be able to unleash the second move and third move of the 9-province seal. At that time, I will be able to unleash the true power of this chaos divine treasure. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly and his eyes were glowing brilliantly. Thunderbolt Island, Doctrine Palace. Chapter 1648 The Right to Stay Permanently. 1648 The Right to Stay Permanently. This place it shall be. As Jian Wushuang looked at a spacious area which was halfway up a mountain, he waved his big hands immediately. With that, a great amount of divine power appeared. The divine power then turned into a black castle in the open area. By achieving abilities similar to Jian Wushuang, one would be able to use their divine power to create a palace or cave easily. However, as Jian Wushuang was creating his castle, he also attracted the attention of the masters of some palaces in his vicinity. Looks like I will have another new neighbor. I wonder who he is? A long-robed old man floated over and in no time, he came to the void that Jian Wushuang was in. At the same time, he also saw Jian Wushuang. A void real god? The long-robed old man revealed a surprised expression right away. Although Jian Wushuang's divine power could rival that of a chaotic real god's, he was still a stage 1 real god in the end. Thus, the aura that he had released was only at the level of a void real god and the long-robed old man could tell with a glance straight away. I am Jian Wushuang from the lineage of Star. Greetings to real god Wuxing, Jian Wushuang said modestly. Jian Wushuang? The inverse cultivator of the lineage of Star? The long-robed old man known as real god Wuxing opened his eyes wide. You are actually creating a palace in the Sanctuary Mountain. Could it be that you have already cleared the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace? I was just fortunate, Jian Wushuang chuckled. You have really cleared it? Real god Wuxing felt that it was unbelievable. He knew that Jian Wushuang had only cleared the inverse cultivation test for the 3rd heaven not too long ago. Moreover, after fighting with the experts of the 4-symbol mansion in the Burning Demon region, he became extremely famous and even his identity as an inverse cultivator was exposed. However, the abilities that Jian Wushuang displayed during the battle in the Burning Demon region were merely that of a normal eternal real god. Similarly, his level of comprehension of the Heaven Way was not very high. Furthermore, how many years has it been since that battle? Not only had he made a breakthrough to real god, he had also cleared the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace. How shocking was his speed of improvement? Real god Wuxing, do you want to have a chat with me in my castle? Jian Wushuang questioned. It's fine. Real god Wuxing shook his head and in the blink of an eye, he left. Not long after that, real god Wuxing spread the news of Jian Wushuang creating a castle in the Sanctuary Mountain and that he had also cleared the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace. In no time, the whole Thunderbolt Island and even the whole Sanctuary Alliance was shocked. It must be known that up till the very moment, the Monster King, who was previously known as the #1 of the Void Real Gods, had only managed to clear the 4th level of the Doctrine Palace, even though he had been stuck in Void Real God for many years. What about Jian Wushuang? He had only made a breakthrough not too long ago, and there was still huge room for him to improve as a Void Real God. Not to mention that he would also become an Eternal Real God and Chaotic Real God in the future. Too fast. Jian Wushuang's speed of improvement is too fast. He has managed to clear the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace, even though he has only made a breakthrough to Real God not too long ago, and this is really frightening. Could this happen because of him being an inverse cultivator? No. Although inverse cultivators are frightening, they do not have much of an advantage in terms of comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei. For Jian Wushuang to be able to clear the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace after making a breakthrough to Real God recently, it is completely thanks to his own power of comprehension, as well as his own talents. In other words, even if Jian Wushuang were not an inverse cultivator, he will still be a monster-level super genius of the eternal chaotic world. By adding his identity as an inverse cultivator on top of that, his potential is a lot greater than Real God Wu Bei's. That's right. Although Real God Wu Bei is also an inverse cultivator, his comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei is not as slick as Jian Wushuang's. The Sanctuary Alliance, the Thunderbolt Island, as well as the experts of powerhouses from everywhere were discussing and exclaiming. Of course, to the Sanctuary Alliance, it was good news to them that such an amazing genius had appeared. However, to other experts or powerhouses who had ulterior motives, it was completely different. At the 4-symbol mansion of the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, Colored Glaze Sanctuary. Within a lofty palace, the 4-symbol mansion master, as well as many high-level experts of the 4-symbol mansion, were gathered together. The 5th level? The 4-symbol mansion master was the intimidating man who wore a robe. His eyes, which were glowing with a shrill light, were looking down. How long has that Jian Wushuang been training in the Thunderbolt Island? It has not even been 2,000 years, right? It has been less than 5,000 years since the battle between him and the 4-symbol mansion. After such a short amount of time, he was able to clear the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace. Moreover, he also made a breakthrough to Real God. If he were given a bit more time, wouldn't he become an almighty? Many high-level experts of the 4-symbol mansion who were within the palace had extremely ugly expressions. Jian Wushuang's speed of improvement was indeed frightening. Mansion Master. All of a sudden, Real God Qi Hua started to speak. Shouldn't we change the way we treat Jian Wushuang? Qi Hua, what are you trying to say? The 4-symbol mansion master looked at Real God Qi Hua. Jian Wushuang himself is an inverse cultivator and his power of comprehension is so great. Now, he has managed to clear the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace even though he has only just made a breakthrough to Real God. Moreover, with the frightening level of an inverse cultivator, he should be able to get into the Real God ranking list when he becomes an Eternal Real God. If he were to become a Chaotic Real God, he would definitely possess the fighting capabilities of an Almighty. Furthermore, he might be even stronger than Real God Wu Bei. Hence, there is no need for the 4-symbol mansion to continue making things so difficult for him, Real God Qi Hua said. Qi Hua, are you trying to say that the 4-symbol mansion should stop going after him from now on? Even though he has killed tens of real gods of the 4-symbol mansion in the Burning Demon region, we should just leave this matter as it is? An elder stepped out and shot down his suggestion. However, Real God Qi Hua laughed. The hatred between the 4-symbol mansion and Jian Wushuang actually originated from the battle in the Burning Demon region. You're right. During that battle, the 4-symbol mansion indeed suffered big losses as many real gods died. However, those real gods were merely some normal void real gods. Since there are so many void real gods in the 4-symbol mansion, it would be considered nothing even if a few of them were to die. Thus, the only thing that can be said to be lost is the 4-symbol mansion's prestige. The 4-symbol mansion has always wanted to kill him so that we can get back our prestige. If Jian Wushuang's speed of improvement were not so fast, We would indeed be able to take action and kill him when there is an opportunity to do so. However, now, not only he has already made a breakthrough to real God, he is also a member of the Sanctuary Alliance. In addition, his potential is unbelievable. If such a person continues to grow, at the very least, he will possess the fighting capabilities of real God Wu Bei when he is at his peak. With some opportunities, he will probably become another Star Palace Master. If his luck is really good, there might even be hope for him to achieve the level of an emperor in the future. Chapter 1649 The Eighth Layer. 1649 The Eighth Layer. Jian Wushuang has too much potential and it would be great if we could kill him in time. However, if we are unable to kill him, he will become trouble for us in the future. Moreover, there is still the lineage of stars supporting him. Hence, fighting such a genius with such talents to the death for the sake of prestige is indeed not worth it. The four-symbol mansion master's voice was so loud that it shook the heavens. He then took out a transmission token straight away and sent a message. In no time he got a reply. After getting a reply, the four-symbol mansion master nodded his head and looked around. I have already negotiated with the lineage of star. From today on, the four-symbol mansion and the lineage of star, as well as Jian Wushuang, will keep out of each other's affairs. There is no need for the four-symbol mansion to find trouble for him, and he also does not have a reason to deal with us of his own accord. Mansion Master is wise, real God Qi Hu shouted at once. The other experts within the palace also nodded their heads. At the peak of a lofty mountain in the Thunderbolt Island, Jian Wushuang has cleared the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace. When the Monster King got wind of the news, his face turned hideous immediately and his eyes were filled with an unprecedented murderous intent. This little kid. The Monster King clenched his fists tightly and he took out a token at the next moment. Jian Wushuang has already cleared the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace. His speed of improvement is too fast and we will need to find a way to get rid of him immediately. If not, he will definitely cause huge trouble for us in the future. Moreover, we should not drag this on for too long. The longer we drag it on for, the stronger his abilities will be. Just as everyone was talking about Jian Wushuang, no one knew that he had already left the Thunderbolt Island. Within the Black Void, an ancient spaceship which came from the outside world was moving forward slowly. Within the spaceship sat Jian Wushuang and he was communicating with Hall Master Yuan. Jian Wushuang, the four-symbol mansion master, has sent me a message personally. Although he did not say it bluntly, he managed to get his message across, saying that he no longer wishes to be enemies with the lineage of Star or you, Hall Master Yuan said. Oh! Jian Wushuang was surprised. In any case, the four-symbol mansion is an overlord of the 10 sanctuaries. Moreover, I have killed tens of their real gods. However, they actually let me off so easily? Ha! Of course they do not wish to let you off. However, they had no choice. After all, the talents and potential that you revealed were too shocking and it caused the four-symbol mansion to be extremely fearful. When facing you, they had two choices. They would fight you to death and there is a possibility that you might die. Next, it might also be possible for you to grow and, in the future, you might destroy the four-symbol mansion. In addition, you must know that only tens of void real gods died and this was considered nothing to the four-symbol mansion, apart from damage to their prestige. In order to kill you for prestige, they would risk getting the four-symbol mansion completely destroyed in the future. Hence, which choice do you think they would pick? Hall Master Yuan laughed. I see, Jian Wushuang could not help but laugh. In the end, abilities were equal to respect. The talents and potential that Jian Wushuang had displayed had already caused the four-symbol mansion to feel fearful. Hence, the four-symbol mansion would rather suffer losses than continue fighting with Jian Wushuang. As such, they chose to make up with the lineage of Star. Alright, Hall Master Huan, have you prepared the item that I want? Jian Wushuang questioned. The star demon continued to mutter, but its eyes closed slowly as his body fell on the ground. Then, it wasn't breathing anymore. Star Demon was also a living thing. Although they weren't intelligent, they had consciousness. As they had consciousness, Jian Wushuang's soul attack could be put to use. Star demons who have yet to turn into an adult, their power is really weak, Jian Wushuang said to himself. He could tell that the star demon before him, although it exploded at a speed faster than an ordinary void real god, its power was only equal to a peak universe god at most. Only when Star Demon turned into an adult and grew horns on its head, its fighting power would only then be compared favorably with a human void real god. Jian Wushuang took a stride forward and came before the dead body of the Star Demon. He stole a glance at the dead body. Jian Wushuang quivered his hand and the Star Demon immediately turned into crimson fog while the crimson fog displayed a creepy black that gave people the chill down one's spine. No demon spirit? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows slightly. Star Demon was a kind of magical creature. In Eternal Chaotic World, it was known as the biggest alternative. As a magical creature, its body contained an extremely unique substance, which was the demon spirit. The demon spirit was an extremely unique power. To human cultivators, it was extremely useful. The stronger the Star Demon's power, the more and the purer the demon spirit it contained. Especially those who were adults Star Demon with horns, the demon spirits in their bodies already formed a demon core. The demon core was precious. In Eternal Chaotic World, a low-grade demon core would be valued at 2 to 3 doctrine gems. Then, the Star Demon that Jian Wushuang had killed was obviously a Star Demon who was nurtured not long ago. There wasn't any demon spirit in its body. Jian Wushuang couldn't do anything about it either. Then, he continued his journey again and plunged forward. The 8th lair was really huge. Even when it was compared to humans' cultivation sanctuaries, the size was vastly different. In a huge lair, there were Star Demons all over the place. There were Star Demons everywhere. Some appeared alone and some appeared in a group. The Star Demons shared the same character. They liked to eat. Even between Star Demons themselves, they often ate one another. After a Star Demon ate another Star Demon, it received the other's demon core or demon spirit. In turn, its power would increase. Of course, their favorite food was human cultivators. Hence, in the 8th lair, as soon as the Star Demons saw human cultivators, they would swarm over but didn't care how strong the human was. Even when they saw the human cultivator kill all of its own kind surrounding it, it wouldn't retreat or escape. After a short while, those Star Demons would all be killed by him, Jian Wushuang murmured. However, his eyes did not contain any sympathy at all. The Star Demons were a special clan which existed for the purpose of massacre and destruction. Their existence had always been a disaster. Everyone could remember the time where the Eternal Chaotic World was plunged into a disaster due to the Star Demon clan. That was a long time ago. Jian Wushuang let out his soul power and wandered in the inner layer. He could find Star Demons with ease. Die! Jian Wushuang's soul power formed into a soul storm and covered the dozens of Star Demons before him. Among the dozens of Star Demons, there was only one adult Star Demon with a horn. Faced with Jian Wushuang's soul attack, only the Star Demon with a horn among the dozens of Star Demons withstood it. The other Star Demons were killed. Just as Jian Wushuang moved, he creepily appeared next to the adult Star Demon. A sword light swept out and it cut off the adult Star Demon's head. Then, Jian Wushuang started searching for demon spirit and demon core. In a short while, "Not bad, I found 9 demon spirit and 1 demon core," Jian Wushuang smiled. The Star Demon clan, although they are the only magical creature that knows how to destroy and massacre, the demon spirit in their bodies is an extremely pure strength. The strength is extremely useful to a cultivator. Jian Wushuang spread his hand and there were 9 extremely pure unique currents. The 9 currents were the 9 demon spirits. Besides, he also had a black crystal. The crystal was a magic core. In the magic core, there was a vast and pure strength. The demon spirit and the strength in the demon core are so pure. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but compliment. He could feel it clearly that demon spirits were an extremely high-end strength with no impurity. Such strength was put before him and Jian Wushuang had the idea to swallow and absorb it. Let's give it a try. Jian Wushuang took in the first demon spirit into his body without hesitation. He raised the demon spirit and it was immediately absorbed into his divine body. What's going on? Why can't I feel anything? Jian Wushuang was shocked. With confusion, he continued to absorb the second demon spirit, the third demon spirit, and the remaining 8 demon spirits altogether. He took in 9 demon spirits in one, but Jian Wushuang didn't feel any difference in his divine body. That's not right. Jian Wushuang's expression suddenly changed. There's nothing different with my divine body, but my divine power, it seems to have improved. Yes, it improved. My ultimate divine power feels like much more than before. Jian Wushuang's eyes twinkled with joy. I understand now. This demon spirit is absorbed and transformed into a cultivator's divine power. The speed of transformation is extremely fast. In other words, as long as one can absorb a large number of demon spirits, the divine power in cultivator's body will increase tremendously. There isn't a need to accumulate divine power through cultivation. Then, Jian Wushuang was filled with excitement. Chapter 1653, Jian Wushuang's Frenzy of Delight. 1653 Jian Wushuang's Frenzy of Delight. Jian Wushuang's eyes glowed brilliantly like never before and he was also extremely delighted. After that, Jian Wushuang looked at the demon core. Read more chapter on novel full. The demon core contained extremely pure power which was similar to the demon spirit. However, the demon core contained more power compared to the demon spirit. I really wish that was the case. Jian Wushuang suppressed his excitement forcefully and started to absorb the power within the demon core. His speed of absorption was very fast, like before. After a short while, the demon core, which was originally like a gem, had already been reduced to a normal black stone. As for the pure power within the demon core, all of it had been absorbed by Jian Wushuang and changed into divine power. Jian Wushuang could feel very clearly that the ultimate divine power within his body had increased greatly compared to before. Although he still lacked the power to form the second ultimate divine power water droplet, he was already very close to forming it. As expected. With that, Jian Wushuang could no longer suppress the happiness within his heart, and he laughed loudly without any restraint. Delightfulness. This was definitely delight as it was something that Jian Wushuang had never expected. As such, it could be said to be a delight that he never had before. It should be known that Jian Wushuang was an inverse cultivator. After making a breakthrough to real God, he became an ultimate real God who possessed an ultimate body and ultimate divine power. At the start, there was only one droplet of ultimate divine power which was considered very little. As such, Jian Wushuang had to restrict himself when he fought. With that, he had to rely on his own training to accumulate power so that his divine power would increase. From there, he would be able to form the second and third ultimate divine power water droplet. When the 10th ultimate divine power water droplet was formed, he would be able to make a breakthrough to become a stage 2 ultimate real God. That was the condition for an inverse cultivator to make a breakthrough. He only required sufficient divine power and there were no other conditions. In other words, if Jian Wushuang wished to make a breakthrough, he would only need to continue raising his own divine power to form more ultimate divine power water droplets. He was unlike a normal cultivator. For normal cultivators, their divine power had to achieve its limit and they must also have a certain level of comprehension of the power of Heaven Way. In addition, there were also requirements in many other areas, such as unique skills. It was only by fulfilling all these conditions that they could make a breakthrough. However, it was not very easy for one to raise his ultimate divine power as he would need to accumulate power continuously for many years. Of course, he could also do so with the help of some resources or treasures that help to raise one's divine power. Discounting the prices of those resources and treasures, the main thing was that they were of little help to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang had tried taking some elixirs which raised one's divine power in the Thunderbolt Island. However, after taking 10 of them, which were worth 5 doctrine gems, his divine power had barely increased. A normal treasure is not of much use in helping me raise my ultimate divine power. Previously, I thought that I could only train for many years to accumulate power in order to make a breakthrough. However, now, Jian Wushuang was so excited that his body trembled. He had never expected the demon spirits and demon cores within the Star Demon Clan's bodies to actually have the ability to raise his ultimate divine power greatly.